This is the 10th episode of the character series from the Pages podcast. Previously on the Pages podcast. Question for you, Rita. When you went to the concert, who did you think the main character and the supporting character of that concert were and why?
So the main character is definitely the artist, right? The artist and their band, and then we who are witnessing the artist's greatness are the supporting characters. Why? Because the main characters are on a pedestal, and then us we are here witnessing their performance.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry to bust your bubble. Well, you guys
No.
in the audience, you're just like background characters.
No name, no face, no detail. That they copy our face stuff. They copy our face stuff in the background. Oh my god, it's fine.
What can I say about Princess Caroline? She's so phenomenally written character. Towards the end of the story, she slowly but graciously climbed down the hierarchy of character relevance in Bojack's story. Sometimes losing relevance in someone's story means gaining significance in yours. Unfortunately, you must make a choice.
And choose yourself, people. Choose yourself.
The final category of characters, background characters. They are basically flat, non-detailed, almost zero identity character who almost never interact with main characters in the show and do so on a very superficial level if they ever do. For example, there is that jogging baboon who gave Bojack that very wonderful piece of life advice. The advice was, it gets easier. Every day it gets easier, but you gotta do it every day. That's the hard part. Last episode, Rita and I climbed down the character hierarchy pyramid, moving from supporting roles to tertiary characters before safely landing on the surprisingly impactful background characters. We saw how even the smallest role can pack a punch if the storyteller is creative enough. If you've missed this deep dive into how Bojack Horseman masters this, I want to strongly encourage you to go back to our series and give it a listen. Today is the penultimate episode of our first season of the first series, the character series. We're shifting gears to look at character classification based on level of development. We'll recap the differences between static and dynamic and flat versus round characters, concepts we already covered in depth in our early episodes. But today, we're distilling them into their most essential points. Plus, we're exploring stock and symbolic characters. Let's be real, it's hard to find a show that really uses symbolism in character crafting as effectively as Bojack Horseman does. Finally, we'll dive into the character roles, the protagonist, the antagonist, and the Deuteragonist. That's what we would focus on in this episode. Have you ever wondered if the main character and the protagonist are actually the same thing? Because, spoiler alert, they're not. We're breaking that down today. With that said, I present to you today's topic, the chaotic roles of Bojack's cast. Welcome to the Pages podcast, and as usual, let's talk characters. Welcome back to the Pages podcast. This is episode 10 of the character series. I am so glad that we're here again. How are you doing, Rita?
I am Gucci. So good. Excited for today.
Yeah, really good. So, the whole point of this series, if our listeners will remember, is to acquaint our audience with the knowledge of characters and storytelling, from their definition to their design, and now that we're doing the classification. So far, we've laid the groundwork for understanding what makes characters so vital in every story. Think of characters as the treasured souvenirs you bring back from a memorable journey, especially in the realm of fiction. They draw you into new worlds, let you experience all the twists and turns of plot, and leave you with the feelings and memories shaped by the storyteller's vision. The ending of a story might touch each of us differently, and in similar respect, the characters we meet offer us countless ways to connect with them. So, to kick off this episode on character classification, Rita, my co host, will give us a recap on the key points we've already explored so far.
So, over to you.
Thank you very much, Betty. Okay, so characters can be classified based on how developed they are by the writers or storytellers. Character development is something we touched on in episode 4 when we wrapped up the second part of the rounded character topic. So we have characters that can be dynamic, static, round, or flat. A character is dynamic if they change throughout the story from the beginning to the end, like if they start as A and end as B or Z. Most villains are guilty of this. Dynamism in characters comes in various degrees. They are the discrete dynamic characters which have a low range in comparison to the amount of events that occurred in the story. Then there are the moderate or quintessential dynamic characters with a balanced level of change. That's like meaning the level of change they experience in their story balances out with the amount of event changes that have occurred. And lastly, we have the unequivocal dynamic character. Okay, so that is when a character's change is higher compared to the events that have happened in their story. So our static character, they don't go through any significant changes, right? Your static characters, main ideologies, personalities, perspective, and almost everything that make up the static character stays intact throughout the story. On another level of development, characters can either be flat or rounded. Your flat character is a character without depth, complexity, and just enough character details for the audience to connect with them, which is supposed to make them realistic and relatable. Well, they are not part of the primary or the secondary characters in the character hierarchy, so it's understandable. However, there are lots of stories with main characters that are flat, especially stories that are more focused on events and plot driven, that are written to fit a specific theme. We had a lot of fun discussing examples of such stories on our fourth episode. Go and check it out. I'm not giving spoilers. Sorry. Meanwhile, on the other hand, a rounded character is everything that your flat character isn't. They are well developed with a background story, history, character complexities, and depth. They have clearly defined goals, and their entire character is written consistently to fit a pre established identity that is unambiguous and realistic. We dived into all of this and more in our previous episodes, so I strongly recommend that you binge listen to all our previous episodes because that's the best way to get the most out of it. There is so much to learn from our case study, Bojack Horseman.
Well, thank you for that summary, Rita. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was hard memorizing everything. Going back to listening to the episodes and then coming back again. That was let's move on.
Yeah. I mean, but it is good to take a breather every now and then because we've said so much since the beginning of the series and everything could get lost in transit. So we have to always hyperlink certain things and draw our audience back to what we've discussed because many of them probably have forgotten and they need to know what episodes to go back to find out more things about specific stuff as we're moving forward. We are slowly coming to the end of the series, so it's also very good to remind people about what we've said. So I really thank you for that summary. So there is another level of character development that we didn't quite dive into in our previous episodes. These are called symbolic or stock characters. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, Rita. Symbolic characters, stock characters. Is it a phrase you've ever heard?
No, I've never heard of them.
Okay. I think it's not very common. And I don't know, for symbolic, it might be a new generation literary terminology. But I don't know how new it is. I just know that it's not as old as the other type of character classifications. You obviously have heard of main characters. You've probably have heard of your side characters, hierarchies types of characters. Those are very common. You've heard of your round character, your flat characters. Perhaps maybe people that are not really into writing might not really know what round and flat characters are. They might think like maybe physically speaking, maybe the character is designed to be flat. So it is good to know all these things. But then symbolic characters, that's even something even I wasn't very aware of. I discovered that during my research. And it's actually very interesting. So, characters can be symbolic and they can narrate from a stockpile of stereotypical character archetypes called stock characters. That's why it's called stock characters, because they're characters that just basically fit a specific stereotype. There is a reason we didn't particularly touch on any of these types of character level of development in our previous episodes. That is because both symbolic and stock characters play into our final topic for the series. That is archetypes. Archetypes is actually quite interesting topic. We'll get into archetypes as the last topic of our series. But before that, let's consider the immediate topics at hand, shall we?
Yeah, babes, let's do it.
So, stock characters definition. According to Oxford Dictionary, the definition, I'm paraphrasing here, but it says that stock characters are your fictional characters in a particular genre of literature, theater, or film that represent a type of conventional or cliche way of representing some characters in a way that they fit or play into a specific stereotype. Examples off the top of my head is the Queen Bee types or the dumb blonde, that's
Oh,
a Hollywood
Jesus,
stereotype,
Angie. Yeah.
or the boy next door. We've got like another example is like the damsel in distress. The mean girl is another stereotype for stock characters. And we have the angry black woman. That one never gets old.
Oh my God.
So, in addition, they can also be considered as basic character archetypes. They possess predictable personalities and attributes so that they fit a specific narrative. You just get them out of the stockpile because they're unpredictable and you kind of know what purpose they serve in a narrative. So, stock characters can also be symbolic by their characters leaning further into a stereotypical exaggeration. They're usually secondary, tertiary, or even background characters. In Bojack Horseman, we have a character like Sarah Lynn, who is a stock character of the stereotypical Hollywood child actor archetype. She transitions from this innocent to overly sexualized character for Faye. We also got some other kind of characters like Lenin Turtledove, who's also a stereotype of Hollywood executive that prioritize sales and profit over creative integrity and ingenuity of work. Moving on, we will talk about symbolic characters, which is the other type of character development that I mentioned earlier. A symbolic character represents a concept of theme larger than the character themselves. They are characters in a story who represent a particular idea, a concept, or a theme in a way that goes beyond the role that they have in the plot. The character's traits, actions, or presence are intended to symbolize broader concepts such as moral values, societal issues, or abstract ideas. Their role often is to convey deeper meaning and enhance the overall depth of the narrative. They may have dynamic qualities, but they also exist to subtly stir the audience mind toward a broader concept. Common practice is to use symbolic characters as supporting characters in a story. However, lots of writers are exploring symbolism even in main characters. Bojack Horseman is a show that did that so frequently and cleverly well. Honestly speaking, I am very glad that Bojack Horseman is our first case study because one would be hard pressed to find another fictional story that uses symbolic characters as much as Bojack Horseman. I'll show you how. First, let's start with the main character and protagonist himself, Bojack Horseman. He represents self-destruction, and he's basically the poster character or the poster face for childhood trauma in human psyche. In the first episode, when we explored Bob Waxberg's speech for the show, part of what we found out he literally said was, quote, Bojack, the depressed talking horseman. On so many levels, Bojack is an exaggerated expression of human trauma. And the result of that is in the manifestation of a deeply flawed and toxic character who is always doing his best to hold on to whatever little bit of humanity he had left. The irony of that is that we know that he's not really human though. He's a horse. Or is he? He's a combination of both, right? He's a peculiar mishmash of an animalistic drive that can be found in human nature and the all too fragile nature of the human mind when polluted. He's figuratively and literally a horse and a man. A character can get more symbolic than that. And we see the same thing in other main characters. So, since your symbolic character is basically trying to represent a theme, when you meet a symbolic character in a story, they consistently represent a major topic or concept. Like I said before, Bojack Horseman is representing trauma. When you see Bojack Horseman, if you've watched the show before, once you see his face, you just immediately think trauma. You immediately think problems. You immediately think some of the many things that he was consistently displayed as.
Mm.
Another example we can think about in Bojack Horseman is like Mr. Peanut Butter, for example. From the very first episode that I encountered Mr. Peanut Butter in the series, he's so happy, he's so chippy, he's so all over the place. And you immediately connect him to a dog because obviously he's a dog, right? But what does
Mm.
Mr. Peanut Butter actually represent as a dog? He represents a friendly, charismatic character that is symbolic of a dog. But Mr. Peanut Butter is symbolic of those kind of people. The
Mm.
twist of his character is that he introduces the human component in him that is like outwardly optimistic, overly
Mm.
friendly, and he just has this nature that makes him so comfortable, right? People find
Mm.
him quote and unquote comfortable, making him a symbol for forced pleasure seeking and fake perpetual states of happiness, which
Like,
we all know is a facade to reality because nobody is always happy. Nobody in life is always 100% at every given time of your life happy. That's not reality.
would you think Mr. Peanut Butter is like a people pleaser?
Exactly. Now get to the heart of symbolism now. You get what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yes, I do.
He's the symbol of people pleasing. He's a symbol of desperate need to be liked. That is the
Mm.
symbol of what he is. You just said the word people pleasing. That's
Mm.
it. And another twist to his character is that he's another form of cowardice, like Bojack, but he's wrapped in a happier and more likable package.
Mm.
And you're asking, how is he a coward? Well, he's that character that doesn't like to confront things. He likes to avoid problems. He likes to
Mm.
avoid confrontation. And I know it sounds like a good thing, but sometimes confrontation is needed.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to confront an issue, despite how uncomfortable it makes you, and despite how uncomfortable it might make the other person, and it might even be about a topic that is so awkward and so personal. But
Mm.
not talking about something and sweeping things under the rug is just as bad as perpetuating issues in people's
Mm.
life.
Mm.
Because you sweep it and you disregard other people's feelings and you give room for other people who bring chaos into other people's life to keep acting. You enable the person who does evil to keep doing because they know you'll be quiet, you sweep things under the rug, you come out with a smile while they're ruining your life. They know that you're not going to do anything about it. So
Mm.
that's another type of cowardice that Mr. Peanut Butter represents. Unlike Bojack, who physically runs away from his problem, Mr. Peanut Butter doesn't physically run away, but he emotionally detaches from them and he just kind of dismisses and like, oh, don't worry about it. You worry too much. Like dismissing your worries is another way, you know? So that is how Mr. Peanut Butter is a symbolic character. Bojack Horseman is filled with symbolic character. Let's go to the next one. There's Princess Caroline, for example. Princess Caroline is the epitome of a small cog that works tirelessly within the massive matrix of corporate machine, hoping that one day she will climb to the top of the ladder as she sadly attaches her self-worth to her job. This is not a coincidence for Princess Caroline. She actually represents this both for men and for women because due to her altruistic nature, she's very self-sacrificing, very self-giving. From her childhood, she has always incorporated this idea of self-sacrifice, which on one level it's great, but on another level it's actually kind of problematic. Like Mr. Peanut Butter, she's also a people pleaser. This is because she imagined that the more of herself she gives to her work and her career and to others, the more value she's worth. And in a way, she's right. But she then starts to take pride in knowing that she can do things all by herself, that she doesn't need anybody. And she becomes the epitome of self independence and toxic feminism. Until one day she realized that she, in fact, can't do it all by herself and she actually needs others just as much as she wants others to need her. This is crucial because Princess Caroline's entire character was all about being able to solve problems, being able to get in there and fix the mess, that she constantly surrounded herself with people who needed some sort of fixing because she always thought, oh, I needed to be doing things. So she will constantly draw people that have problems so that she can be constantly doing something, right? In other people's life. She's constantly
Yeah.
doing something. And the one time she did meet somebody who didn't need her to be fixing anything, she couldn't handle it. It
Mm.
was like she felt diminished. And I'm so glad about her character development in the end, like
Yeah.
accepting that she herself needed care. She herself needed love. That is Princess Caroline, and that's what she's a symbol of. Symbol of over self-independence and workaholism. That's basically what she's a symbol of. Now, Diane Nguyen, she's a symbol of overthinking, self-righteousness, and morality. She is that character who would typically be calling everybody out. You don't use recycled material. She's like, oh my God, you don't use recycled material. You don't do this. And she's like the girl who calls out everybody. She is the poster girl for overjudgmental. On surface level, she looks admirable and you kind of think, oh yeah, she's so cool because she has a strong moral compass. Except later you discover as much as she judges others, she's actually judging herself 10 times more. And she's awfully cruel to herself that she wouldn't even let herself enjoy the good times. She will complain about things when they get bad, and then she's anxious when everything's going good. She is kind of like Bojack in a sense. She's either stuck in the past or worrying about the future. Later, she developed depression, and that depression she developed is obviously just her own doing because she felt, oh, I have suffered in life. How can I be happy? I have to be depressed. And she actually psychologically gave herself depression. Even when she was actually supposed to be one of the happiest characters, she seemed to have everything. She had a successful career, a great husband who was wealthy, and she had friends who loved her. But she was like, nah, I've been through, why am I happy? And maybe her character might not be something that clicks with a lot of people, but there are actually people who think like this, who think that life should be a sort of perpetual battle, that you should be sort of fighting for something, and there is no moment to breathe and just like live life, right? Rita, do you want to add about her character?
Diane was someone because she seemed like that very cool kid until like she started being very, how do I explain it? Overly judgmental and like very self-righteous. I was like, oh
Yeah,
no, because she was so cool in the beginning. Actually.
yeah. Okay. So the last person who's the most symbolic character in Bojack Horseman is Todd Chavez. You remember Todd? He's the symbol of the unfocused, the scattered, and sometimes he's a delusional character.
Yeah.
But like his character is not even bad. It's just the fact that he's forced to confront the harsh reality of the world and to
Yeah.
quote grow up in a world where he's perpetually a child at heart. There's some people that just see life in one dimension, I guess. They just think, oh, everything should be simple, life should be fluffy, or they just have all these ideas and they just don't understand why they keep having opposition. They don't understand why they can't wake up and just sit on their couch and play games all day. Why do they have to have responsibility? I would say just children at heart. And then this world doesn't work well for kids. This world works for the harsh, for the adults, for those who quote have grown up and are facing reality. And he's a symbol of that kind of human experience.
He's actually, I don't know how to explain it, right? I don't want to be him, but I wish that I could just like chill all day, play video games, and like not think about going to work tomorrow because I have to pay rent. Well, carry on. Carry on.
Yeah, like that is everybody's reality. Like, and why isn't that what we're doing? Are we all working in the first place? What are we even working for? It's a big question. And that's something, by the way, Todd actually asked, like, why do we wake up and get a job and try to do things? Like, why don't we just sit and chill? As somebody puts it in summary on Reddit, the person said that Bojack represents our cynicism, our self-loathing, and our worst self-destructive impulses. Diane, she represents our introspection, our self righteousness, and our moral core. Todd, he represents our delusional and undisciplined inner child. Princess Caroline, she represents our responsible, obligated, workaholic nature. Mr. Peanut Butter, he represents our optimistic inner pride, which is merely a front for obvious problems we don't want to confront. So this is how all these main characters in Bojack Horseman are symbols. And it's not just the main characters that are actually symbols, they're actually other characters that are symbolic. Think about what Sarah Lynn represents. Like Hollywood takes a little kid, transforms her into something sexual, and very soon we don't even know what came of her. She becomes an addict, and then boom, she just becomes obsolete. Nobody remembers her anymore a couple of decades later. That is Sarah Lynn. That's what she represents. There are a couple of other characters who represent other things, but because of time, we will just stick to the main characters for now. One way or the other, you will find that one of these characters, the main characters, that they resonate more with you. Everyone has a guilty flaw, whether it's entitlement, victim mentality, self-loathing, low self-esteem, over-independence, delusions, and daydreaming, cowardice, avoiding necessary confrontation, because there's just so many issues involved, right? And it could even be people-pleasing from a compulsive need to be liked. The big question here is, what combination of symbolic character makes up your own fatal flaws? As the author, Pamela Theresa, quotes, she says, "Know thyself and all will be revealed." I will add to that quote saying, after all, you can't actually hide from yourself. So that's why you need to know yourself, because you can't escape yourself.
Yeah, sadly, we're stuck together in this place.
You are stuck with yourself. You
Yeah.
better love yourself, because like you're stuck with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone might leave you, even the ones who love you the most, they might leave you, but you are stuck with you. So
Yeah,
better love you.
yeah.
So we'll try a little quiz, Rita. I think you maybe just 2 or 3 quiz. So I would give you a couple of quotes, and you have to try to guess which character said that quote. And you have to also tell me from our analysis that we've done so far what kind of character that character is based on hierarchy. So are they main character? Are they main or secondary or tertiary? And also based on level of development. Are they static or dynamic? Are they flat or rounded? So that's the new game we're gonna play, but we're gonna keep it short, just like 2 or 3. So from 1 to 15, pick a question.
I just want to announce that no one should have high hopes in this place. Right? No, your hopes should not be high. And
I think from
let's
the
just play.
quotes,
I'll
you
be able
might
to
be able to
tell.
figure out which character said something based on the quotes.
Okay.
Let's see.
My favorite number 5. Go.
Your favorite number is number 5?
Yeah.
Mine is 7.
Oh, that was my former favorite number. Oh my god.
Mama, why is it a former favorite number? What happened? Why did we disown the number?
Well, I don't know, like some astrology. Like I was just browsing the internet.
Oh, okay. So you're
Yeah,
all
like fourth
about
house,
those
fifth
people.
house, whatever. Yeah, I'm one of those people. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. So number 5, here's the quote. The universe is a cruel, uncaring void. The key to being happy isn't the search for meaning. It's just to keep yourself busy with unimportant nonsense, and eventually you'll be dead.
That's
said
Bojack. That is Bojack. Straight up. That is, he says the most, okay, I don't support nihilism, but he says the most real he's like, he doesn't, carry on.
Okay, so this quote, the universe is a cruel, uncaring void. The key to being happy isn't the search for meaning, it's just to keep yourself busy with unimportant nonsense, and eventually you'll be dead. I know it sounds very Bojack, but it's actually Mr. Peanut Butter. Shocking! Which is why I said Mr. Peanut Butter is actually more similar to Bojack than we all think. Because at first, he's presented as if he's like the opposite of Bojack. But
yeah,
at the core of their psyche, they're very similar. You know?
Okay.
So, yeah, so that was Mr. Peanut Butter. Now, can you tell me, is Mr. Peanut Butter, you remember how the story went? If you do, was he a static character, I mean, what kind of character was he from, like, based on, the hierarchy and level of development?
Okay, so he was a very static character. Like I didn't see any form
Mm-hmm.
of like character development. And then in
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy, he's not the main character. He's not a background character either. What would you call like the character that kind of sticks to the main character?
That is a main supporting character.
Baja, yeah, main supporting character. That is a main
Yeah,
supporting character. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. But is he flat or is he rounded?
He's a very flat character.
Mm,
I'm
that one
wrong.
was not. Yeah, he's a rounded character. I know he seems a little bit flat because we don't get a
Yeah.
lot of context about him.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
as you move deeper into the series, we start to get his like backstory a little bit through obviously the lens of other characters.
Mm,
And then we also get to see like his psyche, how he thinks. This quote alone from a character that is like flat, you probably wouldn't get this quote very well because this quote
mm,
represents who he is, right? And
mm,
also from his issues with women,
mhm.
how he's unable to keep one marriage. He's just changing the wives of the wives. And I'm so glad his last girlfriend, she dodged the bullet by calling off the marriage with him last minute. And he wasn't even heartbroken about it.
Yeah, he just kind of moved on. Yeah,
Yeah, he was just sad that he was alone, but not really because he like lost
lost
somebody.
somebody.
And
Yeah,
it
that's
just
true.
goes to show how he thinks as a person, as a character rather. And in the end, he made the ultimate decision to just be alone because he realized, you know what? I don't actually need to keep looking for people to feel better about myself.
Mhm.
And I think that would have been like his own character development. So yeah, he is not a flat character, not necessarily. Obviously, not as rounded as Bojack and some other
Exactly.
characters,
Yeah.
but he's not a flat character.
Okay. Learned. So what number?
So now you have to pick one more, or let's say two more. Pick one from 1 to 15.
Okay, I'm going to pick my ex-favorite character. I say ex-favorite character. Ex-favorite number 7.
Ooh. So number 7, your quote is this. You are all the things that are wrong with you. It's not the alcohol, it's not the drugs, or any of the things that happened to you in your career or when you were a kid. It's you, all right? It's you who said that. You can obviously tell who he's talking to, right? Who this person is talking to.
Yes, obviously. Yeah, it's the main character. I just cannot decide. It's between Diane and
Mm-hmm.
Princess Caroline.
Mm.
Todd, no. Todd will not. Todd's like a chill guy. It's like he won't even have this kind of energy into this. He won't even put his energy into any sentence. Oh. My chest is
Okay, your time is going. You've got to pick.
Oh
You've
my
got to
god,
pick.
yes.
You got to
Okay,
pick.
okay. Diane.
Diane.
Yes.
I love how you said it's not Todd because it was Todd. That's why I was laughing.
You guys, that was the back of this car. I think I was the back of my TV. What is going on? Oh my goodness, bro.
So yeah, Todd. The answer is Todd, Rita.
Bro, that's cool. Okay, so Todd is also a very, would I call Todd a rounded character? Yeah.
Why did you think it wasn't him?
Todd, seriously, the reason why I didn't think it was Todd was because I didn't expect Todd to put in this much energy into a sentence.
Oh.
That was my mistake, actually.
Even if I said it in a very chill manner, you still wouldn't think it's Todd.
Yeah, I still wouldn't think it's Todd.
But in this particular context, Todd was actually freaking angry with Bojack because Bojack...
Was it on the boat that this happened?
No, this is a combination of things, but it wasn't there. It was in Bojack's apartment in his living room when Todd finally discovered that Bojack, first of all, he sabotaged his rock opera, right? And then he also later discovered that Bojack slept with his best friend, his childhood best friend. And then Bojack was trying to excuse it, saying, oh, well, I mean, you're asexual or something, so what's the problem? And he was trying to dismiss it. And I think Todd was like, nah, this is the final straw. Like, I can take when you mess with me, but you messing with my friend, nah, this is the final straw. And yeah, that was what was happening there. And I love how you said it was not Todd because it just goes to show that in Bojack Horseman, the characters are so well defined that you feel like you can almost predict them.
Yeah.
Most of the key moments in Bojack Horseman are when the characters do things that they usually wouldn't do. That is why the series is so good. That is why you see a lot of character development in all of the main characters, because you see them shift their perspective due to things that are happening around them and forcing them to take actions that they usually wouldn't take. So I really like that you said it's not Todd, because that really made my points for me.
That is cool. See, you guys, please go and watch the previous episode. See, the reason why I'm not getting this is because I did not go and listen to the previous episodes. So, yeah, we learned.
But what kind of character is he? Can you tell us?
So, our character Todd is, I think he's,
Flat or rounded?
I want to say flat. Because, like, we didn't see, he was still himself, like, at the end, unless maybe, I don't remember.
That would be for whether he was dynamic or static.
Yeah, or whether he
as
was
opposed
dynamic. Okay, I think he was flat. He was a flat character.
Why did you say he's flat?
Yeah, because he's, what's that word? He's basically like a stereotype, right? He's the hipster guy
A
on the
stock
couch.
character?
Hmm?
Like a stock character?
A stock character, yes. So he's a hipster guy. They didn't pay that much attention to who he really is. We just kind of saw, okay, this is the guy. He would like to be in theater. He did some improv. Okay, maybe he dated a woman, like when he dated a celebrity, and he didn't end up like marrying her because of. But he was basically kind of like a side character, basically like a flat side character. Yeah, so that's the kind of person.
So you would say that Todd is like a flat, static, and side character?
Yes. Again, this reality TV show is not capping.
Because, yes, he was static. I will not lie. He didn't change much. But Todd was definitely a rounded character. We got his backstories. We got a lot of times where there were even episodes that were dedicated just for him.
But what did he do in those episodes? Like, I don't remember him doing anything.
That's the point. He was a character that was all over the place. That's why I said he's a very symbolic character. He's a symbolic character for people who don't know what they want to do with their lives and are just kind of like doing everything and maybe still in the phase of trying to discover themselves. Or like all the other main characters in the series. Bojack is an actor or was an actor. He already kind of knows what he's doing in his life, what he wants to do, and he kind of has a goal in his career, what he wants to do, right? Princess Caroline, very well goal defined, very goal oriented.
Very rounded character.
Mr. Peanut Butter, he just wanted to be famous and he was famous, right? So he got what he wanted. And Diane, well, she wanted to be a successful writer and she got it. So all these other characters kind of had what they wanted. But Todd is basically the character that represents teenagers or young adolescents or just even anybody in any phase of their life who just finds themselves confused and don't know what they want to do with their life. Maybe they don't feel like they have a strong direction or a strong goal or strong motives. You know, this is realistic because there are people that are like that. Even me, there are times where I get to a point in my life, I'm so confused. Like, I'm not doing what I wanted to do in my life. What I'm doing is just for the money. And I'm just thinking, like, why am I here? And that makes you very confused, you know? We did get his backstory. We found out why he ran away from home. No, he didn't run away, actually. He was kicked out.
Yeah, he was kicked out, yes.
So we found out why he got kicked out. We found out about his sexuality. We found out about his person and how he saw things. And, you know, we also saw how he thought. So he was not a flat character. However, he wasn't quite as deep as all the other characters. That is true. I think in comparison to all the other characters, he feels like a flat character. That's why it's easy to say, okay, yeah, flat character. You know, and I feel in addition that it's because of the presence of all the other characters around him that he was given more depth. If the series was just about the life of Todd, he would be represented as a very flat character. But he's the kind of character that he needed other people around him to force him to change, to develop, to build himself. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, Todd is your rounded character, probably your discrete rounded character, not the unequivocal, but your discrete rounded character. And he's also a main character, by the way, but not a main character. He's like a main supporting character.
Your main supporting character.
Yeah, he's also a main supporting character like Diane. He's not a side character. We see him a lot of the times. He has a lot of screen time. And he's always around Bojack. He's not a side character because there are times where episodes are even focused on him. And that's not something you give to a purely side secondary character. So, yeah. One last question before we get to the next phase.
Oh my God, please help me. Let me get this one correct. Let me have like 1/5, 1/4. How many questions have we had?
Okay. Pick a number 1 to 15.
12.
Number 12.
Yeah. Just random.
Right. You know that voice? The one that tells you that you're worthless and stupid and ugly? It goes away, right? Who said that?
Oh my God, I remember this one. But you're gonna help me with the name. It's Bojack's. It was not his sister. It was not his daughter. Was it? No, it was not his daughter.
Yeah, it was his sister. His half
It's his
sister.
sister. His half sister. Yes. What's her name?
Hollyhock.
Yes. Honeyhook.
Hollyhock. She has 7 fathers, so I can't even tell you her surname. Gunga Ein so long. Yeah, but it was Hollyhock. Yeah, you're right. So what kind of character is she?
Oh my God, she's your side character. And then she's pretty rounded, I think. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Is she dynamic or is she...
Or static?
Okay.
Static. She's
All right.
static.
Okay. So you were right about her being a static character. She didn't actually change much.
Ding, ding, ding.
But she's not actually rounded, unfortunately. Because while we did get to see her like in the entire season 6 or I think season 6 or season 5 was when she showed up.
Yeah.
When we got to see her, like who she was, what kind of character she was, but there wasn't a lot of a backstory that was told. We don't even know how she came about, how like she was adopted by 7 fathers. We don't know how she grew up. We don't get a lot of like how she thinks, and a lot of things that we see about her is always in context with Bojack. So she doesn't get like a major depth to a character that it's enough for you to say, okay, I know exactly how she thinks, you know. But she does come off as a rounded character, I wouldn't lie.
Yeah, because she has like her own opinions and stuff like that. Like she was really she remained in my memory, basically.
Yeah, like if they probed her narrative, she could have easily become a well-rounded character.
Okay.
But she wasn't probably given enough screen time to be a rounded character, because for you to get a sense of a rounded character, you need a little bit of more time to dedicate to that character to really develop who this character is. But you were right this time, more or less, majorly.
Yes! I wish I picked number 12 first. That would have been a very nice answer. But I feel like failing those first 2 questions is good. So now I can feel myself now. So I'm just going to quit while I'm at my top.
Yeah, it's better how you finish than how you start.
Oh my gosh. I'm happy, you guys.
Hey pages, this is B, your buzzing host. I'm putting out a quick PSA because I realize a lot of you actually don't know that we have a home base. If you're listening to us on a standard podcast platform like YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or Amazon Podcast, you're actually getting the radio edit version, which I like to call the filtered version, or rather the clean version. Honestly, you're missing out on the best stuff. Over at our website, we host the unfiltered, extended versions of every episode. That's where Rita and I go off the rails. The banter is unhinged, the stories get personal, and nothing is off limits. Well, yeah, you'll see. If you want the full darning experience, head to the link on our show notes and become a subscriber. Trust me, it's a must listen for true fans, and it's one of the best ways to support our show. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Rita, do you remember in our last episode when we talked about character classification based on hierarchy?
Yep.
So, if you remember, we talked about the types of main characters and how people tend to confuse them with main protagonists. If you remember, we're like, okay, who is the main character? And most people would think the main character is the main protagonist. I think we even gave some examples, like Bridgerton, for example, where the main character, by definition, that was given by Dan Brown, we saw that the main character was in fact not a Bridgerton's, it
Yeah.
was the narrator, the
Lady
lady
Whistle down.
Whistledown.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Honestly, you guys, this is your call to either go back to our last episode.
Right.
No
So
problem.
back to our topic at hand. People tend to confuse character hierarchy with character roles. And in this next session, we're going to explore character roles. That's like the roles the characters can take in the story and how we can use them to classify our characters. Remember, character hierarchy, we're talking about main characters, secondary characters, tertiary characters, and background characters, right? So when people say main character roles, some people might think we're talking about hierarchy. They're different things. According to my research, there are actually 7 main character roles, and they're defined as number 1, your protagonist, number 2, your antagonist, number 3, your deuteragonist or sidekick or your foil, number 5, your ally, which can also be your mentor, your confidant. And then your 6, you have love interest, and 7, narrator. These are the 7 main character roles that you find in major storytelling. So we'll pack our station wagon at each of these and we'll explore them in context to Bojack Horseman series. So shall we get into it?
Let's drive. I'm ready.
Let's do protagonist. Who is your protagonist? When you hear the word protagonist, what type of character do you typically imagine?
I imagine the main character, the hero, like the person that has the most screen time or the character that has the most screen time. That's like what comes to my mind. Yeah.
Of course, and that is true. Your main character is what comes to your mind when you think of protagonist, and it's usually like the hero type. And obviously, your protagonist has to have the most screen time because that's literally his role in the story. The role
Mm-hmm.
of a protagonist in a story is that he is the one that kind of helps us to explore the story. But there's a reason why he's not always the main character, because the main character is different in terms of definition to the protagonist. Your protagonist can actually have more screen time than your main character, by the way. Look at Bridgerton, for example. The Bridgertons obviously have more screen time than Lady Whistledown, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the reason why she's the main character is because she's at the front center of the entire story. She
Yeah.
is like a one constant. She's at the beginning and she's at the end of every story in every series. That's
Mm-hmm.
why she is the main character. She's like part of the main conflict. She's part of everything. She's there at the center. She's the one telling the story. But it's the Bridgertons who are like the lens through which we explore that world. And that is why they are the protagonists. So, a basic definition found on Oregon State University's College of Liberal Arts defines a protagonist as the main character of a story who drives the action. He or she is the character whose fate matters most. In other words, they are involved in and often central to the plot or the conflict of the story, but they are also usually the emotional heart of the narrative. So, as we've shown in our last episode on classification of characters based on hierarchy, we see that protagonist isn't always the main character in the story. We've already said that. The word protagonist, however, comes from the ancient Greek term protagonist, which is basically the same way you spell your protagonist, but you end it with E and S, meaning the first competitor or the principal actor. In early theater, the protagonist was a character who took the lead role on the stage. Today, the definition of what a protagonist is has broadened. It is used to refer to the central figure who guides readers through the events of a story. Your protagonist isn't always the good guy. He's not always the hero, and he's not always the one with the best morals or the most ambitious. In fact, there are many types of protagonists out there, all of which can take on different character archetypes. However, one thing all protagonists share in common is that they are the character whose perspective and journey dominates the narrative. They are the ones with the most at stake. They are the ones that the readers follow through most closely, and they're the ones whose goals create the structure of the plot. Moving forward, there are many types of protagonists, all of which take on different archetypes. However, one thing all protagonists share in common is that they are the character whose perspective and journey dominate the narrative. They are the ones with the most at stake, they are the ones the readers follow most closely, and they're the ones whose goals create the structure of the plot. Stories can have multiple protagonists just as there can be more than one main character. Protagonists are also always amongst the primary level of characters, and they will possess clear needs and obstacles which the audience can connect to. A protagonist acts as a driver to the plot. They help establish a character web and connect us to other characters and help readers engage with their struggles, hopes, and complexities. Without the protagonist, the other roles of characters can't exist. Other character roles are established in relation to the protagonist. Without a question, Bojack is our main character and he's also our main protagonist in the series Bojack Horseman. His story is almost always the main story, while other main supporting character stories are like B-side and C-side stories. So what do you think when you hear the word antagonist, Rita?
The villain. Like that's literally all I think about. Like the bad guy, the
The
obstacle
bad
that
guy.
the protagonist has to overcome. Like that obstacle, that's antagonist. Yeah.
If that was actually true, then in anti-hero stories, the good guys who oppose the bad guy in anti-hero story will be like the villains, but they're not always the villains. The antagonist actually is not always the villain. The antagonist in a story is the person or entity or organization that constantly opposes the protagonist and stands in the way of them achieving their goals. Just as your protagonist isn't always a good or heroic character, the antagonist isn't always evil or shadowy. In the anti hero stories, especially something like Joker, a character like Batman who constantly opposes Joker would be Joker's antagonist in his own story. And that doesn't make Batman a villain. Actually, Joker is a villain in this even in his own story, but the antagonist in Joker's story is Batman. Or like in Death Note, L is not the bad villainy type. He's just a persecutor or an investigator who's trying to get to the bottom of all the killings. But
Yeah.
he is the antagonist to Light's story. And actually, Light is the villain, even though he's the main protagonist and the main character.
Oh, nice.
So not all stories have an antagonist or like a clear antagonist. Like in Bojack Horseman's case, there is no clear antagonist. Like who would you say is always there posing Bojack in his story?
Himself.
Himself. So in fact, we can safely say that there is no actual opposition to Bojack's protagonist except himself. He is principally the main obstacle to his own goal. Even though we can't ignore his parents being a major contributor to how it turned out, many of his decisions were still conscious, deliberate ones that he made entirely by himself. Even when people warned him and told him not to, he still, wanted to do what he wanted to do. But if you're looking for an antagonist in that classic sense, when there is like someone that's always standing in the way when the protagonist tries to achieve his goal, then we can say that there is no antagonist in Bojack Horseman. The term for this is a negative antagonist, also known as an internal antagonist, because that's in the case for Bojack. If we consider Bojack's story in phases, however, we can see that the series offered multiple mini antagonists to Bojack's story. When he was a kid, his parents would have been like his biggest antagonist. When he was a kid, he wanted to be happy, free-spirited kid, and his parents just wouldn't let him because they were also unhappy people. Then when he gets into the outside world and wants to become like this big star, the Hollywood system already is his antagonist because that's like what's standing in the way. They don't exactly make it easy for you to be a star in Hollywood. So yeah, there you go. And then there is Dr. Champ. Dr. Champ is Bojack's rehab therapist. And this guy came on as a mini antagonist when Bojack was trying to move forward in his life and change his ways and just live a simple life. But Dr. Champ and some of those reporters who started digging into his story became kind of like his mini antagonist in that post-rehab phase for Bojack. honestly, the way these mini antagonists were presented in the entire story actually makes sense in a realistic way, because in life we would face different people and situations that we take as personal antagonists, right? When I was in high school, for example, I had some seniors who tried to bully me. I wouldn't even say who tried, who actually bullied me. And even my classmate boys back in high school, whom I was classmates with, I would just say, like, I felt like they were out to get me. But there was
Mm,
one senior that I will never forget, one senior in particular that I will never forget. I swear that this girl, she made it her life mission to make my life miserable. I can't believe just how much I actually hated that girl in hindsight. And now she
mm,
feels so far away. I can't even remember how she looked like. Okay, I still remember how she looked like. I can never forget her face because of how wicked she was, right?
mm,
But at that point, she was my greatest enemy, or at least one of my greatest enemy. If I was to tell my story in sections, and maybe in high school, at that point in my high school, she would have been like one of my biggest antagonists at that time because of how destructive she was to me, right? And very distracting. So this is just something I think about. So my point is, realistically speaking, we all have mini antagonists at different times in our lives, right?
mhm.
So the antagonist can be a villain, he can be a rival, he can be a betrayer. By the way, imagine a friend who betrays you. That would be a sort of antagonist at some point. Or it can actually be an authoritative figure, like the mother in the story. Remember the mother Gothel in Disney's Tangled? She was the antagonist in that story.
Yeah.
So, and even the story example that I gave you guys just now, like the parents in that story would be the antagonist to the wannabe rock star. The antagonist doesn't always have to be a person. It can also be an inanimate force, like a storm. If you watch The Impossible, there was a hurricane that came and just destroyed it everywhere. And that felt like the antagonist in that story, right? Or an AI overload, for example, if you're watching like maybe a
Black Mirror or
um
something.
exactly. So maybe like an AI overload can also be an antagonist. Or it could
Mm,
also be something supernatural, like the Demogorgon and the Mind
mm,
Flayer in Stranger Things. That's not really a
mm,
person, but they are like antagonists in the story, right?
mm.
So is there any other antagonist in any story that you can think of? Like antagonist that's not really an antagonist in like the classic bad human villain character type.
Honestly, you've mentioned everything, the inhuman ones, because I was really thinking, okay, maybe hunger or like nature
Mm-hmm.
or like
Mm-hmm.
age. Yeah, there are some
Mm-hmm.
stories. Oh my god, the platform. Hunger was such an antagonist because people be eating each other and not in a good way. Like the whole cannibalism, whatever. Yeah. So understandable. Yeah.
So let's talk about the Deuteragonist. This is a word I actually had to practice.
Yeah. I don't see myself pronouncing this anytime soon.
Just
So
a sidekick. So
yeah, sidekick.
if it stresses you
Yeah.
out. So the Deuteragonist, this character is also known as your sidekick. This is a word that I don't often hear in literature. And it was nice for me to discover this. The deuteragonist is a main or a side supporting character who follows the protagonist through his journey as he tries to achieve his goal and provides assistance or aid to the protagonist. The definition of a deuteragonist from the Greek word deuteragonist, which is spelled the same way again, just with an es at the end, is literally a word for second actor, so your second lead. The second most important and present character in the story after your main character. So often called a secondary main character or a main supporting character. So remember when we were talking about main characters and we talk about divided into two. There's like a main character and there's a main supporting character. Everybody in main supporting character would be a deuteragonist because they are following the main protagonist or the main character's story, right? They are following him through his journey. The deuteragonist's importance comes immediately after the protagonist. The deuteragonist can also take on multiple roles. They can also be the typical sidekick to a heroic protagonist, like Robin Hood to Batman type. Or they can be a love interest, like Lois Lane to Clark Kent. They can also be even an antagonist or a foil to the protagonist, like Prince Zuko to Aang. The Deuteragonist can serve as a foil character to the protagonist, sharing some similar qualities and embodying certain different ones in order to highlight the traits of each. For instance, an anti hero protagonist may have a very heroic deuteragonist to highlight the difference between each character. In this way, deuteragonists are a great way to illustrate character development in your story's protagonist. Like, look at Light Yagami, who is your classic anti hero, and he's got L, who doubles as his antagonist and also a deuteragonist for the series. Rita, do you want to add anything?
No. I think I'm thinking of an extra example, right? But nah, nothing's coming to mind. Maybe later I'll chip in. For now, nothing's coming to mind.
Okay. All right. So deuteragonists are very important to a protagonist story, and writers can be as creative as they need to be in exploring how they use them. In Bojack Horseman, the writers provide Bojack with four major deuteragonists in the story, and all of which take on different character roles in the story. Let's consider Todd, for example. He's a roommate and also the self-proclaimed best friend of Bojack. He doubled as an ally and a sidekick to Bojack, helping Bojack pull off some of his shenanigans. Of course, Bojack would take him for granted and would cross lines and boundaries he shouldn't have, but he was hoping that Todd will forever remain in his shadow, but Todd, he didn't. Todd acted as the character in Bojack's life, which helped show how Bojack takes for granted the people in his life who actually loved and respected him for who he was. Well, until they don't anymore. Another example is Princess Caroline. She's one of the longest standing deuteragonists in Bojack's life and the one who stuck with him the longest while offering him the most support. Naturally, this makes sense since she acted as his love interest for a while until she finally called things off with him. Then there's Diane, who had almost a love interest role, but she was also more of a confidant type. And she was a very close friend to Bojack, whom he confided in and he looked up to for like moral accountability. She was very much a confidant to some extent and also kind of like a mentor type to Bojack. She played a critical role in helping Bojack get the help that he needed, and she was someone who constantly raised the bar for him, showing him how to be better, and she showed him that she believed in him, that he could become a better person. That was Diane. Like Princess Caroline, Diane also held out hope for Bojack for a long time until she finally understood that she had reached a maximum capacity of existence that she could give to Bojack before she herself begins to sink. Bojack and Diane, more than any other pair of main characters, shared quite a lot of character similarities. And I guess that's why it made sense that they didn't always bring out the best in each other. But unlike Bojack, Diane had a huge sense of responsibility and she always held herself up to high standards. So she was capable of not just feeling guilt, but also reflecting upon things. She also tried many times to right her wrongs, no matter how many times she fails. So these, are just examples of deuteragonists in Bojack Horseman. And we can see already how these characters can take on multiple roles. I also forgot to mention Mr. Peanut Butter. He was also kind of like a deuteragonist to Bojack also, but not a very strong one.
No.
Yeah, probably towards the end, but yeah, that's why I didn't really put him there. But like the strongest ones are like Todd, following Bojack through his story. And then you've got also Princess Caroline, who also was like a love interest to him. And then you've got Diane, who's also like a confidant and an ally. So the thing is, a deuteragonist is just used to capture every character around the main protagonist, who is basically following the protagonist through his journey, through his story. Right? So, yeah.
That is so cool.
If you had a best friend, your best friend would be your deuteragonist, I guess.
Exactly. I was about to say that. Your best friend or your boyfriend.
I mean, yeah.
Best friend, yeah.
Or boyfriend, or husband, or life partner, or business partner, or just
shout the person on the side that is with you all the time.
anybody who is with you all the time, following your story, will be like a Deuteragonist to you, basically speaking. And that's a wrap for today. We have to put a pin on our rose discussion for now, but we'll be picking up on this exactly where we left off in the next episode. We've covered the basis of protagonist and antagonist, including that mind-bending realization of how Bojack is often the primary antagonist of his own story. Talk about wearing multiple hats. In our next and final episode of the season, we're looking at how characters like Princess Caroline, Todd, and Diane shift through roles from allies and sidekicks to love interests and foils. Really interesting stuff. If you have questions, insights, or you just want to nerd out with us, leave a comment here or drop us an email via our website. Your thoughts are the engine that keep this show running. Thanks for sticking with us to the end, and as always, we'll see you on the next page.
Bye!